Hi, my name is Bill, and I am, amongst many other things, the guy with the least meaningful job title in any room of industry colleagues that I stand in. My title's stupid. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But let's backtrack a little bit to try and figure out how that came to be. Have you ever really wanted something? Like, you really wanted something, you worked for it, you waited for it, you strived for it. And when you finally got it, it was a bit, underwhelming as opposed to everything you hoped it would be. Perhaps it was a toy in your youth. Perhaps you waited for the latest album of your favorite band. Perhaps it was elected office. In my case, thank you. In my case, it was about waiting to be something. I wanted to be the guy. I set out in this industry taking the garbage out, literally, when I was 15 years old. And all I ever wanted to be was the man. The holy grail of achievement for me was in 3 words. And those words were Chief Executive Officer. Chief Executive Officer was my stepping off point on this roadmap to Pride. I became the Chief Executive Officer. I'd achieved everything that I had set out for, and I said, now I am he. People will bow, people will scrape. I have achieved everything that I set out to, and I will be respected for it. One of my favorite things to do in our company is orientation. I love to go and personally welcome new people to the company. At my very first orientation as a Chief Executive Officer, I realized how wrong I had been. I realized that I had been in the pursuit of status and not the pursuit of purpose. And that was made clear to me by the people I interacted with. I asked people in orientation to tell me who they are and what do they do. I said, what do you do? And this guy said, my name is John, and I'm a restaurant manager, and I manage a restaurant. I said, what about you? He said, my name is Yvette. I'm a cocktail server. I serve cocktails. And they said, who are you? I said, I'm Bill. I'm the chief of the executives. They all had a purpose, and I had a status. So at that moment, I decided that as a leader, I would concentrate on my purpose and not on my statement, and I rebranded myself from Bill Walsh, the Chief Executive Officer I'd always wanted to be, to Bill Walsh, the Chief Pride Officer I was always meant to be. I think every business leader, and particularly in hospitality, is a Chief Pride Officer, irrespective of job title. Our job is to create environments that make people proud. Pride is probably the most potent force in business. What happens when people are proud? I look at my own industry in hospitality. Well, what happens is that if our colleagues are proud, absenteeism decreases, turnover decreases, productivity increases, and it's just a much more fun place to be. If our guests are proud, what happens? Well, one thing which is quite profound is in these days of immediacy of communication through social media, a proud guest becomes an advocate for an experience and a brand. And they tell other people, proud guests equals new salespeople. They're out around the world saying, hey, look where I was, look what I did. Let me tell you about my experience. I'm proud to share. So, here I am, the Chief Pride Officer of the company, and I recognize that what we need is a way to harness the power and deliver and activate the power of pride within the organization. Hence the need for a pride-driven ideology. But what is pride? This is a definition of pride. Pride is a personal commitment. It's an attitude. For me, people who run their businesses proudly and for whom pride is the end destination, they're the people who refuse, for example, to accept the word fine. Fine is the least acceptable word in the English vocabulary for anybody involved in hospitality. I mean, how can we accept this? A guest stays in a hotel or a resort after a 10-night stay. Maybe it's over festive. We know how to charge high rates. They check out. The receptionist is checking them out, looking at her computer, not at them, going, la, la, la. How was your stay? It was fine. Okay, good. It was fine. Okay, good. Proud people don't accept mediocrity. Mediocrity is a virus that will enter our businesses, it will take it over, eat us from the inside out, and we will die. Proud people fight against the very concept of mediocrity. So we need a pride-driven ideology, and what the ideology will become is the roadmap to success in a business with purpose. Not a business with status, a business with purpose. And roadmaps are important. Here's the thing. I think that one of the greatest technology advancements to happen in many, many decades was the creation of satellite navigation. Not only does it help us get from A to B, I think it is the technology invention that has probably saved more marriages and relationships than any other. For those of you old enough to remember what it was like sitting in the car going, you know, wait, I think it's upside down. We should have turned left about 7 miles ago. That always led to interesting conversations. Satellite navigation does a couple of things. It helps you to get from A to B. Usually we know where we're going. Satellite navigation gives us the confidence for when we are faced with unexpected obstacles along the way. Because what a satellite navigation system does is it doesn't change the destination, it says recalculating. And we as business leaders are the satellite navigation systems. We are the GPSs of our business, because when that business hits an unexpected obstacle, our colleagues will look to us. We cannot change the destination. We have to figure out a different way of getting there. That's what a roadmap in business is, and we must maintain the ideology of an organization in that roadmap. So we have the concept of pride, and we have an ideology. And it struck me that these two things need to come together, and I was trying to figure out a way to do it. And then I realized that, hey, I live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the home of Hollywood. What do we do in Hollywood when we have two different things that are coming together? Ben, Jennifer. Brad, Angelina. Brangelina. So I am pleased to announce to the world today my new concept for business, my idea, which is quite simply the idea of Prideology. I think that every business needs to put pride before profit. Profit is a byproduct of having a purpose-driven organization that is fueled by pride. Many times we will talk about the journey through business and a business roadmap or a business plan being the A to Z of business. I would challenge us to think of it not as the A to Z, but the P to P. And perhaps it's the P to P through P. It is the pride to profit through purpose. And what we're seeing happening today is we're seeing ourselves living in a brand new America. And I quite deliberately call it brand new America because it is an America of new brands. It is an America of brands who are very clear on their purpose, on their ideology, and they create a relevant connection to an emerging consumer group who actually give a damn what you stand for and not just what you produce. Our industry has been fantastic for many years about talking about what we do. We're occasionally good at talking about how we do what we do. And usually we suck when it comes to talking about why we do what we do. The consumer that's emerging today will no longer accept that. They want to understand what is the DNA of a brand, what is the heartbeat of a brand, what makes us get out of bed in the morning, how human are we as the people behind the brand. On this slide, there are a couple of my favorite examples. Let's take Tesla. I don't believe for 1 second that Elon Musk woke up one morning and over his cornflakes said, you know what? If I take gas out of cars, I think I can make a whole lot of money. I think Elon Musk is one of the proudest people I have seen in business. And what he set out to do from an ideological point of view was to accelerate the advent of sustainable transportation. He was driven by a passion. He wanted to make this planet a better place, and he is proud of his contribution. P, pride. P, purpose. P, profit, $57 billion market cap. If Elon Musk had set out to say, I'm going to set up a company that's going to have a $57 billion market cap, I don't know if he'd have got there, because I think that what has created an extraordinary brand in Tesla, is similar to what Julie and Elizabeth, the founders of SoulCycle, created. Now, I'm 50 years old. I know. The reason that I may only look 49 and a half is because I frequently sit on a spin bike, a bike that goes nowhere in SoulCycle. Julie and Elizabeth set up SoulCycle in order to rebel against fitness exercises that just felt like hard work. And they created a mantra, they created this culture, they have an ideology. And in so doing, they created a tribe, a community who came on the journey, and I think last year had $125 million in turnover. Another example of a business driven by purpose, driven by proud people, which ended up being extraordinarily profitable. Shake Shack, Uber, Airbnb, all of the brands that are emerging on our landscape today that are making a difference in the world seem to me to be very clear of why they are doing what they're doing, and they put as much effort into articulating that for their colleagues, for their business partners, for stakeholders, for customers, as they have put effort into how they do what they do. So, we have our Prideology, we've written it up, we have a mantra, we've perhaps talked about it at heads of department meetings, so it's done. No, it's not done. Activation, activation, activation. The three most important components of bringing a Prideology to life in any organization. Now, as it happens, Viceroy's Prideology, I like to call the accidental ideology. I had joined the company in 2012. I was the new chief executive officer. I'm just coming to terms with the fact and coming to realize that I was actually the chief pride officer. And I was meeting with my senior team in Miami for the first time. I was opening the first senior leadership conference since I joined the organization, and I had no idea what to say. So what I decided to say was what I had found in the organization and articulate it in a way that would be a series of commitment statements to our colleagues and customers and challenge statements to ourselves. This is it. This is my ideology. And it talks specific to hospitality about where we need to focus, who we need to be, and why we do what we do. It talks about being hosts, first and always, being innkeepers. Our industry came from people opening up private homes to allow weary travelers in hundreds of years ago as they walked from point A to point B, to keep them safe, to keep them warm, to keep them nourished. That responsibility hasn't changed. We do it through a very contemporary lens. We do it with an infusion of modernity, but we must never forget where we came from. There's a lot of cool brands in hotels. Tell you what, when I go to a party, typically I find that the least cool person in the room is the person in the room trying their damnedest to be the coolest person in the room, right? Let's not try to be cool. If people say we are, that's a great compliment. We're innkeepers first, second, and last. When I do orientation, my favorite thing that I talked about, I put this slide up, and we talk about it for 90 minutes minimum. It's not a presentation, it's a conversation. We go through every line and we activate it. Some of my favorites are being unabashed provocateurs. Let's create positive disruption. All of the brands that I mentioned earlier, SoulCycle, Uber, Airbnb, Tesla, they're positively disruptive brands. But they're disrupting to a purpose, because disruption in its own right, disruption without purpose, is merely interruption. It is noise for the sake of noise, as opposed to noise for the sake of a cause. Positively disruptive brands are taking over the brand landscape. And in order to have that confidence, that courage, other words spoken to in the ideology here, you need to be comfortable with why you're doing what you're doing. We talk about creating wealth. Now, as a business, we're here to create wealth. That should be obvious, but I'm not talking about financial wealth. The value, the impact of the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry on the world in 2017, according to WTTC, will be about $7.1 trillion. I grew up in a small house in Limerick in Ireland. I don't get to use the word trillion very often, but I am so proud to be part of an industry that has that impact on the world. We educate people. We feed people. We make communities stronger and better. For our guests, Look, I run a luxury hotel company. My guests don't need me to create wealth for them. They're pretty wealthy people. But the currency that they are in shortest time of, the most perishable currency that they have, is time. So if I help them to use that time effectively to generate memories that will last for a lifetime, I'm fulfilling my ideology. So as the chief activist, so I'm a chief executive officer, chief pride officer, I'm a company GPS, and I'm the chief activist of the ideology. I have to lead by example, but everybody has to live it. How do you know if it's working? Well, you know it's working when it becomes part of the everyday vocabulary of your company, when people talk to each other in the language of ideology, when pride is very evident. Here's the thing I dare you to try. The next time you're in your own place of business, you're walking down a corridor, you see somebody you know walking towards you, perhaps it's George, and you say, "Morning, George, how are you?" And he says, "Morning, Mr. Walsh, I'm fine." Two things have happened that I hate. One, nobody cares about the conversation. Two, we accepted the word fine. Try this, dare you. Walk down the corridor. "Hey, George." "Hey, Mr. Walsh." "Oh, George, how proud are you?" Not how are you, how proud are you? I dare you, if you have a business that does a colleague satisfaction survey or a guest satisfaction survey, make it a colleague pride survey. Make it a guest pride survey. Have the courage to look people in the eye and say, is how I'm doing, what I'm doing, making you proud? At a doorman in Yas Viceroy in Abu Dhabi, two guests came out, said, "We need to get to a reservation for a restaurant. We're late." There were no hotel cars, there were no taxis. He could have walked through door A. Door A would have been, "Well, you should have left more time to get here, shouldn't you?" And he chose instead to walk through door B, and he went through door B, which led to the parking structure. He brought up his own car, and he put them in it, and he got them there. Man, was I proud of him, and was he proud of himself. So, be your own chief pride officer. Have a prideology that fuels your business. Use it as a roadmap and make it real. And I hope you take away something from today that maybe changes the way you think or the way you act. Danny Meyer, the founder of the Union Square Hospitality Group, changed the way I think 15 years ago. I read his book, Setting the Table. Danny said, service is present when something happens to you. It becomes hospitality when it happens for you. I have built a career on that one phrase. It has led to me being the chief pride officer of my organization. It has led to everything that we talked about today. And you know what? I'm not finished yet. My name is Bill Walsh. I am the Chief Pride Officer of the Viceroy Hotel Group. Thank you very much.